After 7 straight nights of massive protests across Romania, the people appear, at least at present, to have won, but they're not backing down just yet. Now, if you're not familiar with the story, I haven't been following it because this sort of international news is very rarely talked about in American media. There's this massive corruption debate going on inside of Romania, with the government attempting to change the rules to benefit politicians at large, but individual politicians inside of their the ruling political parties. So we're going to get into it. The country's ruling coalition made an executive order back on January 31st to decriminalize abuse in office by officials if the sums involved were less than around $48,500. Ordered without any input from Parliament, the decree would have stopped all investigations for pending corruption offenses, freed officials imprisoned for corruption, and blocked further investigations related to those offenses from being brought to justice.
That's right.
Which seems like kind of an indefensible set of positions to try to cram down people's throats all at once. Perhaps that's the reason that the legislature was not asked to comment on it.
Exactly. Now, just to give you an idea of how widespread this corruption has been over the last few years, there were more than 2,000 people convicted between 2014 and 2016 alone. 2,000 people in the span of 2 years. And so obviously, those who have been benefiting from such corruption would like to get the law to protect them for their future behavior. And the argument was, well, look, I mean, we're putting too many people in prison, and our prisons are too full of corrupt individuals who are undermining our democratic system. But nonetheless, let's change the rules to their favor so we get them out of prison. No.
Okay, so you sound critical of this move, but let me give their explanation for it and see if it sways you.
Okay.
The coalition government argued that these changes were needed to align some laws with the Constitution and reduce prison overcrowding. What do you think?
Yeah, not buying it. Okay?
Oh, no? No, the Romanian people didn't buy it either, it turns out.
And that's what I love. So the story obviously has a very positive component to it, and you're watching it right now with hundreds of thousands of people going to these government officials and telling them, no, we are not about to have it. This is insane, by the way. Look at how amazing that protest is.
That's a huge quantity of people. Sean Spicer tweeted out the video saying that that was Trump's inauguration crowd. Anyway, okay, so who would have actually benefited from this measure if it had gone through, or if it does in fact go through after this brief stumble? Among those who stood to benefit from the decree is president of the PSD, that's the Social Democratic Party of Romania, Liviu Dragnea. Currently blocked from becoming prime minister due to corruption charges, he's currently facing over defrauding the state of around $26,000. The order might have allowed him to stand as the country's leader. So that party, extremely important inside of this coalition government. Right now, their leader serves a purely political, non-elected function. But if this had gone through, then suddenly that guy might get to join the government. And that's reason enough, really, to do it there. But what I love is, and so I'm glad that the protests are going on, that they're standing strong. But think about the sums of money being tossed around, that in Romania, you can actually lose out on political office over $26,000.
I know.
Do they know the bribery and corruption that goes on here in the U.S.?
They probably do, which is why they're so protective of their system of government. I mean, if you look at the United States and Romania, it's night and day when it comes to this issue. First of all, I mean, you had a disastrous Supreme Court ruling with Citizens United, and a lot of Americans didn't even know about it or care to know about it. A lot of media outlets, mainstream news outlets, didn't even cover it. And what did that do? That did undermine our democratic process, because that essentially allowed corporations to have a bigger voice in our political system than the average American voter. And so I think that should be a cautionary tale for every country. And so I don't know if Romania has looked at us and thought, we're not about to have that. But regardless of what influences them to be as politically active as they are, I love it. And they're relentless, because even though this decree has been struck down, sorry, I'm stepping on your feet. It's not good enough for them. They want more. So go ahead.
Exactly. Well, in the same way that, I'll tie it in with Dapple, which you might not have expected, but we'll get to that in a second. This is the good news. After 6 nights of protests in cities across the country, of which you saw a video of just one, the coalition withdrew the controversial executive order on Sunday. But the new rescinding order risks being rejected in Parliament. Hey, look, they get to be involved in the process now, where the ruling PSD and its junior coalition partner have a strong majority. And so it could still be reversed after being reversed. And that is what scares a lot of the people who've been doing the protesting. Now, even with this, the government is still planning to free around 2,500 prisoners serving sentences of less than 5 years through a different decree. Now, those protesters are saying, we originally started because of this particular measure. But your reaction to the measure, the quotes of which we're going to get to in just a sec, has told us that we can't trust you. These are direct quotes from activists. We can't trust the government, and we want you to step down. And so we've seen this before, but it's good to see it sort of growing outside of its original bounds. If you're trying to fight against corruption, and this is just one facet of that corruption, well, then getting rid of that doesn't really accomplish anything. We know how this works. You get them to take back that decree. The protesters go back home. And a couple weeks later, a couple of months later, suddenly it gets slipped in, perhaps in slightly different language, perhaps spread across a couple of different decrees, once again bypassing the parliament. And that's what they're scared of. And as I said, with DAPL, we saw the same thing. People had been protesting for months over the Dakota Access Pipeline. It gets suspended during the last few months of President Obama's presidency. But very wisely, they didn't go home because they knew that the fight wasn't over.
That's right.
Donald Trump has reinvigorated it, and then thankfully those protesters are still there.
Well, that's a great example. And I think the biggest threat to a democratic system is complacency and apathy. And thankfully, you don't see that happening in Romania. But just to give you another example that's kind of similar to DAPL, you know, one of the biggest issues during Obama's administration was net neutrality and ensuring that we would protect net neutrality so internet service providers wouldn't slow down the speeds of various websites that either didn't have the resources for higher speeds or maybe ran businesses that disagreed with those internet service providers. Now, we won that victory with the Obama administration, but fast forward to the Trump administration, and that same, net neutrality is under threat again.
Yeah, and it's likely coming back.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to keep fighting, but you're right. Unless you do away with the underlying corruption that plays a role in various policies, you're never really going to have a true victory. It's going to keep coming up again and again.
Yeah. And I just want to read you, we talked about the politician who might theoretically, if this goes through, be able to head up the government of Romania. And look at the way that he portrays the protests going on. It's going to be scary on its own, but then think about the American example. Does this sound like anyone you've heard before? So this is Liviu Dragnea, Social Democratic Party president, who says, the organization of these protests and their scale show that this is a political gathering. Who is organizing this? Hard to say, but I hope that the state institutions have this information. I reproach myself for not having understood that this is a much better organized plan than a simple spontaneous movement. And the idea there is that, of course, these people aren't just coming together because they share concerns about the future of our government. Somebody is organizing it. And we saw this in America a couple of weeks ago. When the Women's March came together, suddenly they were all being paid off by George Soros. All of them. My check, I assume, still in the mail because my pockets are empty. This happened then. It happened the next week. Okay, I was at the protest at LAX over the travel ban. All of those people had been paid, and none of them would admit it to me. Okay, I saw pizza boxes. Who paid for the pizza?
Good
but
point.
Anyway, that's how you demonize and delegitimize a movement. We saw this with Occupy Wall Street. We're going to continue to see it, especially from politicians of this stripe. There was an activist who talked about one of the common threads of illiberal political movements is they can squeak by into office during times of uncertainty, when people are feeling economic stress, military stress, fears about refugees and xenophobia and things like that. But then they're surprised when their actual policies are opposed by a majority of the people, and they respond as Liviu Dragnea did. They respond as the way Sean Spicer and Donald Trump do here. And it's scary for the future of Europe. I mean, Romania thankfully has this strong tradition of street protests, mass protests. But we've seen the dominoes starting to fall in other parts of Europe. I mean, you've got a presidential election in France that's going to be extremely important, and a very Trumpian French politician is doing quite well there. You had the Brexit. You have Hungary gradually just sliding into what looks like an authoritarian state, basically, and they were just rewarded with a visit by Vladimir Putin just a week ago. And I think Romania is not there, but they're scared about the future, possibly going in that direction. So I'm glad that they're taking action now.
Help us with Operation Watchdog. Help us hire 4 new reporting teams. We could be the watchers on the wall. Make sure we keep Trump and the establishment in check. TYTnetwork.com/go.